Hello, I'm Patrick Donnelly, the CEO of AOCS. It's a great pleasure to be with you here today to explore this new partnership we have with Cnfa, the Cultivating New Frontiers in Agriculture, and the Feed the Future Soybean Innovation Lab. Specifically, the aim of this partnership is to support the Southern Africa Farmer-to-Farmer program by providing technical support to agro-processors in an effort to promote food security in the region. I see this as a really exciting opportunity for AOCS members to make really important contributions to the welfare of a region that we typically don't have a lot of access to. So the objectives of this webinar are, one, to gain awareness of this partnership and the work that of our partners. Two is to understand the opportunities and constraints in agro-processing in Malawi specifically, and the Southern African region more broadly. And three, to gain an understanding of what it means to be a volunteer subject matter expert with the Farmer-to-Farmer program. We have an incredible lineup of speakers today, and we're going to cover a lot of ground in this hour. To make things more efficient, we're going to hold all the questions for the speakers to the end and deal with that as a panel. But you should feel free to post any of your questions anytime using the question feature in the GoToWebinar box. Please don't use the chat feature for speaker questions. However, if you do need technical assistance, feel free to ask your questions in that chat feature. So, without further ado, let me introduce our first speaker. Dr. Juan Andrade is the Associate Professor of Global Food and Nutrition at the University of Florida in Gainesville. His research interests are focused on innovative concepts for food fortification, point-of-use sensing technologies for micronutrients in fortified foods, reformulation of relief food products, and service experiential learning education programs. Juan is going to talk to us today about soy utilization for nutrition and how this relates to food security. So Juan, take it away.
I'm Juan Andrade. I'm an associate professor of global nutrition, and I lead the nutrition team at the SIL. My goal today is to introduce the Soybean Innovation Lab, its mission and approach, as well as the focus of our nutrition team. Finally, I will make emphasis on this collaborative approach to improve the operation and agro-processors in Sub-Saharan Africa, especially those focused on processing soybeans. The Soy Innovation Lab for Value Chain Research, or SIL, is one of 20 innovation labs currently under the US Feed the Future initiative. It is hosted at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and is made up of more than 100 technical soybean experts from across 24 countries, with the mission to provide all the stakeholders operating across the entire value chain the critical information and technology needed for the successful advancement of soybean development in Africa. We do this first by providing scientific data that better support evidence-based decision-making by the soybean development community, by engaging with the practitioner community to translate research findings into successful soybean development programs, and finally, by partnering with organizations to bring these innovations and technologies to scale, such as what we're doing today. In a nutshell, the goal of our nutrition team is to address food insecurity and malnutrition through more effective, safer, nutritious soy-enhanced foods. Indeed, our work is more relevant today than more than ever, as the shadow of stunting, as represented in this world map from the latest statistics from the Joint Child Nutrition Estimates, continues to afflict large regions in Sub-Saharan Africa and Southern Asia. Over 75% of all stunted children under 5 years live in those two regions. In a country like Malawi, for example, where a little over 34% of children under 5 are stunted, having robust value chains in oil seeds is particularly important. Our team uses an evidence-based participatory approach to rich nutrition for development, which is guided by a DIMES paradigm for the development of successful products to address consumer demands. These DIMES stand for delicious, inexpensive, nutritious, environmentally and culturally acceptable, and safe. Our team has 3 main objectives, all of which address technical gaps within country partners, as well as building capacity of our practitioners. These are: alleviate early child malnutrition through soy-enhanced DIMES complementary foods, support childhood nutrition through soy-enhanced dine foods for school feeding programs, and enable food manufacturers to bring shelf-stable soy-enhanced dine foods to markets. Our conversations today lie within this last objective. As you may know, the development of new food products is a marriage of science-driven development and business opportunity. It goes from the identification of the business opportunity, its technical and financial feasibility, all the way to successful launching of products. This partnership between SIL, Cultivating New Frontiers in Agriculture, the American Oil Chemists Society, and of course our agro-processors in countries can be very impactful for those industries in Sub-Saharan Africa. SIL and Cnfa can better translate the needs of the food industry, especially on soy-related topics, to the AOCS community, who then can provide the most effective and timely support to companies that seek help. As you can see in this figure, there are multiple entries for experts to address the needs in small, medium, and large-sized companies in Africa. So you are all represented. You will hear from our speakers today the type of environment, the hurdles, the gaps, and opportunities, but most importantly, the tone of hope that exists and the audacity of our collaborative vision and approach to bring lasting solutions to our partners there. Yes, you will hear that the type of problems they face might be simple to address technologically, but in practice, very difficult to implement due to the complex environment and a multitude of factors. So please, let's listen carefully and be ready for this adventure. Let's step up to the challenge and bring together lasting change. Finally, I would like to thank you for your kind attention and thank you for our partners. Please volunteer with us. You will make a big difference in people's lives. Thank you.
Juan, thank you very much. That was excellent. Our next speaker is Dr. Mariata Alieta, and she's the program director for the USAID-funded Farmer to Farmer program, Southern Africa program that's implemented by Cnfa. Mariata is based in Zambia, and you're an agronomist by training, Mariata, if I remember correctly. And you spent your whole career in ag development and research, of which 12 years have been in West Africa. So Mariata is going to give us an overview of the Farmer to Farmer program. So Mariata, welcome to AOCS.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for being here and for your interest in volunteering with the Farmer to Farmer program and with the Soybean Innovation Lab. Farmer to Farmer program is a USAID-funded program that is 35 years old this year. The program has two goals. First, to increase economic growth and food security through agricultural development, and second, people-to-people diplomacy. Cultivating New Frontiers in Agriculture, or CNFA, is an NGO based in Washington, D.C., for which I and my team work. And CNFA has been implementing farmer-to-farmer programs for almost 30 years and is currently implementing the Southern Africa Farmer-to-Farmer program, which is working in 6 countries, including in Malawi. Farmer-to-Farmer is an expert volunteer program. Many of our volunteers have decades of experience in their fields. In our focal countries, the volunteers work with host organizations, which can be agribusinesses, farmer organizations, universities, schools, ministries, and other organizations. Most of the assignments are 2 to 4 weeks. Importantly, Farmer-to-Farmer program is a demand-driven program, and therefore the host organization needs to demand the support of the volunteer. Although our assignments are usually all in person, currently during COVID, we are only conducting virtual assignments. The process for volunteer assignment starts from the host identification, after which we work with the host to develop a scope of work and collect baseline data. We then recruit the volunteer and prepare the volunteer for the assignments, and that includes logistics, transportation, translation, and others. And our field offices then welcome the volunteer and support the volunteer during the assignment periodically checking in with them. As the assignment wraps up, there's a debrief with the volunteer and the host in the country, and also with the volunteer in the US. After the volunteer assignment, we continue to monitor the host, and we stay in touch with the volunteer, and many of our volunteers also continue to work with the host even after the assignment. Next slide, please. We are very excited about this collaboration between AOCS, the Soybean Innovation Lab, and the Farmer-to-Farmer program. We will start this collaboration in Malawi, but we hope we can extend it to other countries. Focus of the collaboration will be large-scale oilseed processing, which can have significant impacts on nutrition and incomes of Malawians, including for the small-scale farmers who sell their products to the oilseed industry. What is new about this collaboration is that it allows us to bring in Soybean Innovation Lab and the depth of its expertise in the work of identification of host organization and the development of the scopes of work. Technical input that is needed to ensure that the volunteer efforts are well targeted and focusing on key constraints and opportunities. And naturally, this collaboration allows us to recruit from among the AOCS members and thereby bring in their expertise to bear on critical issues in Malawi's oilseed industry. Although we have not had many volunteers working in large-scale processing up to now, we have been fortunate to have had some great volunteers, such as Bill Hitz, who is pictured here and who will be talking later. And continuing in this vein, we really look forward to having the AOCS members as volunteers. We are always happy to answer any questions and connect you with volunteer opportunities with the program. Thank you very much.
Mariata, thank you so much for that great overview. So everyone is following this, and the Farmer-to-Farmer program that's implemented by Cnfa is really a framework to fund subject matter experts to consult with on specific issues identified in the countries that they're working in. So that's just a great program. It sounds like it's a lot of pieces to put together. So our next speaker is Roderick Chirambo. He's a Malawian agribusiness development professional responsible for managing Cnfa's program in Malawi. So he leads the program's process for identifying these capacity gaps in the legumes industry and designs the appropriate training packages to be delivered by US volunteer consultants. So Roderick is an economist by training and has a graduate degree in international business management. So Roderick, please tell us about the Farmer-to-Farmer program in Malawi.
Thank you, Patrick, and welcome. My name is Roderick. I'm managing the Farmer-to-Farmer program in Malawi, and I've been doing this since 2014. The oilseeds industry in Malawi is mainly based on peanuts, soybeans, sunflower, and cotton. About 70% of these are grown by smallholder farmers who on average grow less than an acre each. These farmers sell their produce either at farm gate or at the local market to traders who then aggregate the commodity and resell to processors. And the industry has grown significantly in the last decade as productivity has grown and new large-scale processors have set up operations in Malawi. But for a long time, development work, including the Farmer-to-Farmer program, really targeted small-scale processors operated by farmer cooperatives or small family-owned businesses. The aim of such interventions is to increase incomes earned and promote consumption of nutritious foods. However, this noble cause is not always resulted in success in the long run, mainly due to the capacity challenges faced by these small processors. Despite the fact that there have been some individual short-term success stories, like that of Kamwendo Farmers Cooperative, which I'm going to share. This cooperative started in 2010 with just a few members. Collectively, they accessed a peanut press from the Malawi government project. But then the cooperative requested for technical support from Cnfa. And through the farmer-to-farmer program, we brought in 4 different volunteers from the US over the next 3 years. Eventually, their product improved and it got certified by the Malawi Bureau of Standards, and their business grew significantly. They are now a recognized producer of cooking oil, but they only produce up to 6,000 liters of refined cooking oil per year, which is not a huge amount. So we're looking at large-scale processors as a big opportunity. The large-scale processors take up over 95% of the oilseeds produced in Malawi. These commodities are processed mainly into cooking oil, with the cake going for livestock feed. The processed products are sold all over the country, including rural towns, thereby supporting the nutrition goals of the industry. So far, the farmer-to-farmer program has not really worked with large-scale processes, but we believe there is a lot of potential for positive impact on the industry. This will mainly be through the introduction of new technology and expertise, as well as changes in policy and regulation. So ultimately, the whole industry will benefit, including the smallholder farmers and the small processors. That's why the farmer-to-farmer program is keen to exploit this collaboration with AOCS through recruitment and placement of US volunteers with large-scale processors in Malawi. Thank you for listening, and please contact Cnfa office in Washington, DC if you are interested in volunteering. And I hope to see you in Malawi at some point in the future. Thank you.
Roderick, thank you so much for that presentation and an overview of what Cnfa is doing on the ground in Malawi. So our next 2 speakers are with us here today. They will be live for the Q&A session at the end. But because of bandwidth issues, we have pre-recorded their presentations. So I'm going to introduce them together and then we'll show them back to back if that's okay with everyone. So our first speaker is Richard Irish. He is an independent industrial food processing consultant and has worked in the food processing sector for over 40 years. Richard is an engineer by training, and during his presentation, he's going to give us an overview of the ag processing sector in Malawi. And this presentation will be immediately followed by Chipolero Kantakana. He is the project manager at Sunseed Oil Limited in Malawi. Now, Sunseed is the country's largest soy oil producer, purchasing approximately 40% of the local soy production. Mr. Chippy, as he's known by his colleagues, is currently working to enhance the capacity of these small-scale producers to achieve consistent yields and quality. Chippy was trained in environmental science and technology with a focus on food science and also in food processing itself. So again, we have recorded presentations we're going to show you, and both Richard and Chippy will be with us at the end of all our presentations today.
Greetings to you. My name is Richard Irish. I'm a processing consultant. I've had the privilege of being involved in building and operating processing plants, mainly food processing plants, for a little over 40 years. And it's an honor for me today to just talk to you briefly about the subject of competing with excellence. I'd like to start with a simple statement, which is on the slide. Producing consumer products of a high quality standard at competitive prices brings four main advantages in the marketplace for the Malawian producer. The first advantage of producing a good quality and a competitive product is that one can dominate the local shelf space in the retail market. This is a picture that I took in the Longwe at a supermarket, and it was really good to see the locally produced oil being dominant on the shelf. It had more shelf space than imported products. It was very competitive price-wise. Its quality looked very good, clean labels, really good to see that. The second advantage is that a good quality competitive product will become very competitive also on the international stage. This is an interesting market where competition is fierce and standards are very high. So being able to get into that market will be possible when making a good quality competitive product. Also, making good products adds value to locally produced crops. This is so good because it means that the crops aren't simply shipped out as a raw material, but value is added, and this increases the return to the local farmer. Good quality products, competitively made, will also bring about sustainable employment of a local population. Local people who can be paid competitive wages and have sustainable and good quality jobs when food companies run efficiently. So what does it take to get to the point of competing with? The first thing is it's important to have a high quality raw material. This is a picture of beans at a Malawian producer. Malawian produced beans. The beans are of good quality, analyzed for high levels of protein. It's a very good start to have a good quality raw material. It's also important to build state-of-the-art processing plants that keep up with world standards in terms of processing rates, processing unit costs, and usage of power and chemicals. It's also important to have highly trained operational staff, lab staff, operators, maintenance technicians. All of these need to be trained to a high standard in order to keep up with the world requirements. It's also important to identify the major metrics. These are metrics that all processors watch all the time. These include cost per ton, the unit energy usage, and just the general efficiency of the plant. This should always be improving because that's what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is improving, and it's important not to get left behind. And then finally, it's important to produce a really good quality product, a product of good design, quality of conformance, reliability, safety, and proper storage. Packaging has to be of good quality, and all of these components make for excellence in the marketplace, and this will ensure success and a product that's well received. Thank you for your attention.
My name is and I'm the projects manager for Sunseed Oil Limited, one of the major processors of vegetable oil in Malawi. And the company started in 2002 with one brand of product, which is Malawi cooking oil. And it was started as a family business for the Kasam family. And with the inclusion of professionals, it has grown to what it is now. We focus on 4 value chains, which include soya, sunflower, and maize groundnuts. Though we are buying 4 types of grains, mainly we are processing 3 types of grains, soya, sunflower, and maize. But we are not into processing of groundnuts because we have a big challenge in Malawi, which is the issue of aflatoxin. Our groundnut is heavily contaminated with aflatoxin, and up to now there hasn't been a big improvement in terms of the quality of the grains. So Sunseed has grown over the years. Initially in 2002, we used to have 100 employees, but at the moment we are recruiting about 400 permanent employees. And during the season, sometimes we have an additional 200 employees, making it 600. We have also grown our capacity in terms of procuring commodity from 10,000 metric tons to now collectively 80,000 metric tons. Sunseed has also managed to make strides in terms of product quality. We used to be certified only by Malawi Bureau of Standards, but at the moment, at least, we have acquired ISO certification. Now, we extract crude oil from these grains using solvent extraction, but initially the grains are crushed into soy flakes and then sent to the extractor for extraction of the crude oil. Once the crude oil has been extracted from the soy flakes or sunflower, we are refining it through triple refining. Previously, we used to refine it using the double refining method, but at the moment we are refining it triple refining. Now, this has improved our product quality and it has also increased the demand for our products on the market. Now, our plant is connected to a 2000 kVA line, and we're using about 8,000 metric tons of coal per year, and the water volume is about 5,000 cubic meters. But we are interested as a company to see that we efficiently use the energy and also water, because energy is quite expensive in Malawi, and also water is also quite expensive. Sunseed enjoys quite a good share of the market in Malawi. We are taking about 40% of the market, and the rest are sharing about the 60%. We also have some imports of vegetable oil from South Africa and Zimbabwe. Distribution of our oil is done in smaller packs, which is 250 ml bottles up to 500 to 5 liter bottles. Estimated that it takes about 30% of our production, but the rest is distributed in bulk in 20-liter buckets and jerry cans. We have other products that we have engaged into over the years, and that's maize flour, which is fortified with iron, but also we are producing taste spread and fridge-free margarine, which is enriched with vitamin A and D. In our pipeline, we have interest to increase our product. So we are interested to see we produce soy lecithin, soy flour, and soy chunks, and also soya milk. Malnutrition is still a problem in Malawi. At the moment, stunting is estimated at 37%, and anemia in preschool going children 63%. And government has been forced to make some of the fortification in products as mandatory. So if you're producing flour, it's mandatory that you fortify it with iron. And in order to contribute towards solving that problem, Sunseed is also interested in producing soya milk and also corn soya blend, which is popularly known as CSB. Now, as we're interested into diversifying into producing more nutritious foods for the population, we are interested to go into production of soy chunks. So Sunseed has invested a lot. We have purchased a plant, and at the moment we're installing the machine for production of soya chunks. Now, we know that there are so many challenges that we are going to face because it's a line that we haven't gone into. We'll be doing that for the first time. Our processors or engineers will have challenges in terms of producing a product that will be liked by many Malawians. And it is this area that we're interested to see if we could get support so that we reduce the time of producing a very perfect product that will be liked by many Malawians. So if there are people out there or engineers out there that would be interested, it would be very great for Sunseed if we could get that support, so that from the time we're starting to produce a product, in terms of product development and also running the machines efficiently, we should get that support from these experts. So this will be very interesting for us if we can get that support from the experts. Thank you very much for your attention. I think this was all what I had time for.
Well, Richard and Chippy, thank you so much for that presentation, those presentations. And I think you're speaking, directly to AOCS members here and issues that are in their wheelhouse. At this point, we've given you an overview of the Farmer to Farmer program, and we've given you some information on the specific needs in the region that are directly relevant to AOCS members and their expertise. But we haven't told you what it means to be a volunteer. I know many of you are thinking about all the things that you might be able to solve, the problems you could solve based on your experience, but we still haven't answered that question of what does it mean to be a volunteer. So we're so fortunate to have Bill Hitz with us on the webinar today. Dr. Bill Hitz has done volunteer work in food processing with Cnfa. He's retired after a 36-year career in DuPont and DuPont Pioneer, where he did work in stability of oil products in canola and soybean, as well as control of protein, oil, and carbohydrate content in legume seeds. So Bill, tell us about your experience with the Farmer to Farmer program and what volunteers can expect.
So I'm Bill Hitz, and I'll give a short introduction of the Cnfa volunteer experience. I'm a retired researcher for DuPont Pioneer and DuPont Biosciences. Most of my career was as a lab-based researcher in physiology, biochemistry, and molecular genetics, but I do have some background in grain processing from earlier in my life, and I grew up on a family grain farm. I've done 3 assignments in South Central Africa, and I'm just finishing up a 4th one online with a company in Lilongwe, Malawi. The 3 assignments that I've done in person are pretty varied, but all have in common that they are a business or a process that has a challenge, and they're trying to correct those challenges. And we tried to do that by just changing the operating procedures that they were using, then writing new standard operating procedures after the end of the assignment. So if part of your work life has been being a problem solver, you can very likely be helpful to these folks who are trying to start or trying to run food processing business or after harvest grain handling businesses in these countries. Assignments are run so that as a volunteer, you have time to prepare before you arrive at the host site. In some cases, you have the chance to email back and forth and to get specifics and to try to do the best job that you can from a distance of identifying main problems and the solutions that you can try once you get on site with the host. In each of my assignments, we've run the process that we were setting out to work on multiple times over 2 weeks. You're functioning as a teacher in addition to being a consultant. I've taken pipettes, balances, sleeves of media plates, my home brewing cleaning supplies, and many other things in a second check bag. I leave a little note for TSA. They always open it, but most of that stuff gets through. For teaching and communicating in the 2 projects that needed them, I had a good and technically educated translator. For lecture presentations and for writing documents in Chichewa at the end. English is pretty widespread, so in each of my projects I've had at least some students that I can work with one-on-one as well as through a translator. In the 3 in-person assignments, we made product that was better than the process was making before we started. In the case of soy milk and cornflakes, the changes were good enough that we could make product consistently with the equipment that was installed as it was. With the sunflower oil refining, we made clear oil, but not consistently. But we did identify some processes and some engineering changes that I think should make it consistent with time. These projects are with newer enterprises that have many challenges. And it's not likely that you're going to solve every problem that they have, or maybe even get to a really functioning business in one project. But hopefully you can work on the main problem that you found and give them enough insight into problem solving that they can make progress going forward. You get to work with a group of folks who are interesting. They are interested in their process, and they're actually eager students. They tend to be on the young side, but not exclusively. The countryside is varied. It's agricultural. You might go in the cool, dry season where everything is brown, or in the wet season, which is much like Midwestern summer. See a very different culture, but one in my experience has been very polite, orderly, and respectful of the help that you're trying to give. I have not extended my trips, but I've had time to go sightseeing on the weekends, and you see, again, a varied countryside. So to conclude, I would like to continue doing this kind of work, and I'd go back to Malawi or Zambia if a suitable assignment comes up in the future as the ability to travel returns. The online project that I'm finished now has also been quite satisfying. I think it did help that I was able to, I had seen the kinds of environment these folks work in, but actually for some projects, I think that online is actually a good way of helping, and is a nice experience. That's all I have. Turn it back to Patrick.
Bill, thank you so much. And that concludes our speakers. We're going to move into Q&A very soon, but before we do, we have one more poll question for you. So Amy, could you pull that up? Thank you. So do you think you'd like to volunteer for the Farmer to Farmer program? Okay, let's close that poll and move into Q&A. And I will remind everyone, please use the question box in your menu. We have a few questions posted here, so we'll pull from those as well. I do have a question, Bill. You mentioned that we're in a time of COVID. Amy, do we need to bring all the other folks back?
Yes, I was just writing a chat message. All of our presenters can share their webcam should they have one and unmute. And there you go.
So I guess this is really for our CNFA panelists. Obviously, things have changed in a time of COVID, and we're not quite sure when we'll get out from under all this. I know you're moving to virtual experiences. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how that's going and what people can expect from that?
Mariata, you want to start or should I?
Please go ahead.
So as I was saying, I've done one project. It's actually with an aggregating warehouse, and I in part took it because I thought that I could help without being there in person. You know, that I could see the warehouse on a camera, talk with the staff, and we could come to some conclusions on what problems were and what we might do without being there. So I think it's actually worked quite well. I don't know that it would work for everything. Certainly when I was doing sunflower oil refining, you really needed to be there. You had to have your hands on the valves and that kind of thing. So some things I don't think would work as well, but some do. And I think that you know, it's kind of up to the staff to sort that sort of thing out and bring forward the requests that can be filled in this way.
Terrific. So another question about the program. I think we talked about earlier that the consultants who are picked for this there is some funding provided. Can you speak more about that? I mean, does volunteering effectively mean unpaid consultancy is one of the questions we've received. So we talk a little bit about the funding and how that works. Maybe Mariata?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, you know, we do rely on our volunteers in terms of their time but all the other costs are taken care of. So the plane trip to the focal country, any costs that the volunteer has before that, including vaccinations, accommodation in the country, and a modest per diem is paid during the assignment. But what the volunteer is then, is giving is the time for this assignment. And it is USAID that is funding those other costs then through their project to Cnfa.
Very good, thank you. So here's another question. The scale of production in Malawi is very small. Does this make soybean oil a difficult crop because the oil content is relatively low and solvent extraction is required to get a good oil yield? So perhaps Chippy or Richard might have some input on that.
Maybe I could start what you say is true. The oil percentage is only about half of some of the other softer seeds. But the advantage of soybeans is that you get a very good protein meal, higher protein in the meal than typically of the other seeds. So soybean oil is a good oil. It's if it's refined right, as Chippy has actually indicated, it's still pretty attractive oil. But the margin is actually made up for by the good level of protein in the meal.
Very good. Another question here. What did you mean by triple instead of double refining? Sure, Richard, that was in yours or in Chippy's presentation?
Yeah, so that will be taken by my colleague who is here. So maybe you introduce himself.
This is Sripad. I'm the general manager of the company, Sunseed Oil. I would like to introduce my company as one of the fast-moving companies, which, as Chief has already told you about the details, what we produce, what we process, soybean, sunflower to make soya meal, sunflower meal, and the refined soya oil. Now, regarding the triple refined soybean oil is actually, it used to be a normal neutralization, bleaching, and deodorization, deacidification process. But nowadays, we degummit the oil, we produce soya lecithin, then we neutralize it, using a long mix process as well as the short mix process. Then we bleach it and deacidify and deodorize it. We are in process of installing a physical deodorization where we, in due course of time, we will remove the use of chemicals in the neutralization process so that we get a better yield of refined oil with more shelf life and lesser peroxide value and a good quality in the textures and the color as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Juan, I have a question for you. So you, the Soybean Innovation Lab has this approach that you refer to as the Dines approach, right? There's 5 aspects to it. Do you find that some of those, are there any particular one of those elements is more difficult to address than others?
Thank you for the question, Pat. Well, yes, I think we have that criteria because we argue that having this as a goal more likely will lead to adoption or consumption of these type of products. If it doesn't taste good, juice is a no-go. And if it's not accessible, it's low cost, it's also a no-go in low-income settings and available for most of the population. But that means that if it's tasty and it's expensive, means that the processing has to be also cannot add much cost to it. And that's why with good technical assistance, you can produce volume and understanding, for example, what you do with all these oil seeds in terms of flavor might actually help directly these products reaching the masses through these agro-processors. Yes, the other components, safety, for example, is a big one. And it's a big one because we have missed the ball in many different ways, that we want to reach the product, for example, quality, but safety on its own is a big problem that has to be addressed in countries. And I think we heard that, for example, trying to work with oils from peanuts is a big problem, such as the raw materials, for example, are suffering from this aflatoxin contamination. So that means that we have to deal with the raw materials, and soybeans also have this problem, not as much as peanuts, but that safety component is it's a requirement. And then the communication with policies and governments is also a requirement for these companies to thrive. And that makes the situation hard for those small and medium-sized companies, because they have to commit to quality, and they have different, and it's something that we want to emphasize in this conversation, that different companies will, depending on the level of processing, will have different problems, but problems nonetheless that can be addressed with technology and with the expert support from the membership. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's return to the volunteer issues for a moment. Bill, just how many assignments have you been on?
3 in person and 1 virtual.
Very good. Very good. And can you tell us what it was like the very first time you took an assignment and you landed in country? What was that like for you?
You know, I guess I'll step through it. So you most likely you're going to fly through South Africa. So landing in Johannesburg is about like going to Munich, or the airport's very similar to that. So it's not much of a cultural change. But once you get to Lilongwe or to Zambia, to Lusaka, then you kind of feel it's quite different. But you know, it's still modern and mechanized. I guess that's the best way that I can say it. But really what hits you is once you see how many actual challenges these businesses are facing. So you know, in the case of about everything, you can go at times of year where electricity is a bit spotty. So you have a great plan for what you're going to do in a process one day, and then you lose 2 hours of electricity. But that's the life that they have to live, and you kind of go through things in that way, that you see how many challenges these people are facing, and it's quite sobering that there's a lot to overcome, but it's you know, basically a happy place. So they work at overcoming those things.
People they have triple they find.
So Roderick, can you talk to us about how you identify the needs in Malawi, and then how do we go about matching up potential volunteers for those needs?
All right. Yeah, so in Malawi, we specifically chose 3 value chains, of which legumes is one of them. And really what we do is just consult some of the industry players and farmer cooperatives, and share what the farmer-to-farmer program is, and encourage them to come up with requests or proposals for technical assistance in whatever area they may be. So apart from the technical, we also have volunteering in like the business management side of things. So we then sit back to wait for the individual businesses to approach us and make their requests, because we don't want like to be pushing them, but rather they should show the initiative. They should take the initiative and show that they really need this support. Once we get that, then we discuss the specifics. One key thing with our scopes of work is that they have to be very specific because it's only 2 to 3 weeks. So we can't solve all the problems at once, but we pick and choose what can be done at a particular time. And the same host can receive a couple of volunteers, like the example I gave where they had like 4 volunteers over a period of 3 years, which then eventually showed the required results. But we really have to dig deep and find out what is the root cause and how can this be intervened through a volunteer who will only be there for 2 to 3 weeks. Right. And of course, there are some issues that cannot be done through that mechanism, and then we refer them to other potential support organizations.
Great, thank you. You mentioned something that's very important there. It's not only technical expertise you're looking for, but business management expertise too. And there are a lot of our members who are in that business management side of the sector as well. So that'll be, I'm sure, great news to them. I guess, Chippy, perhaps to talk to us if we had one problem that we could solve for you. Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that COVID's not a problem at the moment, but what would it be?
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Is it frozen? Yeah, can you come again on the question?
No, the question was simply if a member of AOCS could be of assistance to Sunseed, what's one thing we might be able to do for you, assuming that we don't have these issues with COVID for the moment, just to get a more context here, what would it be?
We would like to your help regarding familiarization of our product to the people in general, to the market in general. I would like to emphasize something on what is going on and what we are planning to do in future. In Malawi and in the Southern African region, people they are habitual, or they have a taste of soya pieces, what is called extruded soya chunks or soya pieces. These product, what is made from a low fat meal. It contains a fat of around 4 to 5%. And the texturization as such done by a single screw extruder or double screw extruder is not that up to the mark. The shelf life of the soya chunks is not, it doesn't give a taste of a meaty taste as such. But what we are going to make in the days to come using a bullet technology, twin screw state-of-art extruder, is we are going to texturize the defatted, high NSI, high protein, high PDI soya flour. And while doing so, we will give we'll try to make a sort of meat analog or a high protein soya chunks with, excellent water absorption. The fat content will be less, but the protein level, digestible protein, will be very higher side as compared to what the existing trends of manufacturers or the processors do here. We will also blend this particular soya chunks with number of different type of spices, like chicken flavors, like chakalaka flavors, or what n number of combinations can be done. We want your guidance and assistance and your innovative ideas how to go about making the public understand that this product is more nutritious rather than having a soya chunk with a fat content of 5%, which ultimately, after keeping in store or a packed thing, starts becoming rancid and its shelf life deteriorates, because as the oil inside the soybean chunks or extruded product starts fragmenting, so it starts, the fatty acid starts increasing, it starts smelling out and it becomes more rancid and it's not good for human consumption, as I feel. But it has to come from the people that they are okay with the product what we make, which is more nutritious as compared to the current trends of soya chunks, what the Malawians or Zambians or Tanzanians are habitual of eating.
Very good. Thank you. Juan, I know you have some thoughts in this area as well on nutrition and texturized protein and soy flours.
Yeah, that's correct. I think there's two big problems in Sub-Saharan Africa that we have identified with agro-processors, at least the ones that are pressing oil. If you do the solvent weight, did you have significant yields in terms of good quality oil, and probably the issue of using the cake for other purposes, either extrusion or into food or feed, are good routes, and that's the standard of operation in the United States and other countries that have a solvent extraction. But the other problem also in Sub-Saharan Africa and in many other countries is that they don't use solvent extraction, they still use presses. And that leaves a significant amount of oil that through the pressing process and the temperatures that is rendered oxidized or start the oxidation process and leads to these odors and changes in the quality of the product. So we were trying to put some investment on those specific projects ourselves at the Soybean Innovation Lab to figure it out, how we can better address the stability of these materials, such as the sunseed folks are mentioning, is really nutritious. And more importantly, which Malawi has going, is that the fact that there is, when I mentioned in the DINES criteria, is culturally acceptable. These chunks of oil of soy are consumed already by the population and cherished, which is something that we can work with. So we're not introducing a new product in the market, but if that's the case, the expectation is such that the flavors cannot be different to what they like, and that's why you have to add these flavor agents to make a product that, for example, could reach households or reach school programs if it's a uniform or good quality. And yes, oxidation, it is a problem, and it's a significant problem we will try to address. And hopefully with the support of AOCS memberships, we can find an answer to this sooner rather than later. Because as you can see, it's an understood problem in food chemistry, and we learn this when you go to your schools, and you learn this when you go to chemistry and processing. But there's still a big problem that has to be addressed, and I think having these the focus on solvent extraction and also oil press extraction, I think we can address these singularly, separately, with that resulted in products that could be consumed by many people. So yes, oil is great. Cake is better, I feel, in terms of nutrition-wise, good protein content, but we had to figure out how to do better at it and have more uniform product. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. So we are at the top of the hour. For those on the webinar, if you're interested in volunteering, on the slide that you're seeing now, you'll see Remy Chipetta's email that you can send to get, contact the Farmer to Farmer program at F2F recruitment@cnfa.org. So please, we hope you'll reach out to Remy and express your interest, and he can get you more information about that. So I want to thank all of our wonderful presenters today, and thank all of the attendees who took the time and showed interest in this very important topic and spent their time to be with us today. I'm hoping that you're all inspired to take a serious look at this program and considering volunteering with the Farmer to Farmer and sharing your expertise, because I know, together we can make really great things happen. So with that, we're going to close this webinar. Thank you all again for all your interest and time and all the great work that you do. Have a wonderful day.